Greetings and salutations, friends! Today we are going to have a look at one of the Imperium's toughest cookies, namely Cataphractii armor, also known as Terminator plate or tactical Dreadnought armor, with the Cataphractii being the very first mass-produced variant on this now rather famous piece of wargear. In the dawning days of the Imperium of Man, the Emperor of Humanity left a unified terror behind, at the head of a war host the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Hundreds of thousands of Legionis Astartes, superhuman warriors designed on the very cellular level by the Emperor himself, would be the spearhead of the Great Crusade. Their unmatched might would lead humanity out into the stars to reforge their lost empire beneath the Aquila banner. And behind them would come the innumerable billions of the Imperial army. Men and women are ready to hold the grounds the legions captured and secure the future for the trillions more that would come to live and prosper on the world secured by the victorious vanguard of humanity. But the galaxy was not such a gentle place as to simply roll over and hand over its bounty quietly. Space was filled with monsters of many shapes and forms, some brutish and monstrous like the vile greenskins, some elegant and pernicious like the Eldar. And merely travelling through this vast void held dangers all of its own. Ships forever lost in the void, and vessels lost in transit through the warp could wipe out thousands of lives in an unavoidable instance. The hostile galaxy was devouring the strength of terror at a frightening pace. But with new worlds also came new discoveries. The long-lost technologies of the now extinct Human Federation that had once ruled the stars before the coming of Old Night. The fragments of this knowledge were now being reforged by terror, and solutions to the problem of attrition began to present itself. Armed with new knowledge, the tech priests of Mars set about creating a new suit of armor for the superhuman space marines. They would create an unbreakable steel cover for humanity's spears. They would create tactical Dreadnought armor, as mentioned, oft referred to as Terminator armor. And whilst the initial experimental suits proved ineffective, having been based primarily upon massive exoskeletal suits used by Terran engineers to operate in debris fields or the reactor cores of spaceships, these were far too massive and bulky for frontline usage. They did indeed offer substantially improved armor protection, as one would expect of armor designed to operate in such extraordinarily hostile environments. But the battlefield offered challenges that debris fields and reactor cores did not. The designs did, however, provide a baseline for further experimentation. And through further trial, error, and refinement, the Mechanicus moved ever closer to their goal. A pattern of Terminator armor capable of not only complementing existing suits of powered armor, but indeed outright replacing all of them. To further this goal, the Adeptus Mechanicus entered into partnerships with several of the Astartes legions, with many prototypes and limited test runs sent out to legion forces, most extensively the Iron Hands of Ferrus Manus, who had an especially close relationship with the priesthood of Mars. This cooperation would eventually result in the first suit of tactical Dreadnought armor to enter mass production, and they would name it after the legendary horsemen of humanity's ancient past, said to be all but invulnerable to their enemies' weaponry. They would name the armor Cataphractii. And it soon found favour amongst many of the legions, but most of all amongst the Iron Hands, who secured themselves more suit than any other force, and closely behind them in their enthusiasm for the new wargear came the Lunar Wolves, later to be known as the Sons of Horus, who equipped fully half of their legion's elite first company with Cataphractii armor, and renamed this formation the Justarians, who painted their armor pitch black so as to contrast more heavily with the pearl white of the regular Lunar Wolves' power armor. The suits brought a wealth of new benefits to the Astartes' forces, whilst the problems with maneuverability and bulk had not been completely solved. Cataphractii plate was mobile enough for the Legion's purposes, and excelled in certain circumstances where a lack of mobility was far less of an issue when compared to the improved protection and firepower of the Cataphractii. For each suit was not only massively armoured with several centimeters thick layers of bonded plasteel and ceramite thick enough to render even large caliber crew-served weapons fire ineffective. Indeed, only the largest of cannons or dedicated anti-tank weaponry could even hope to defeat the armor's protection. But even then, there were further defences hidden beneath the ceramite. These early patterns of Terminator armor were also protected by twin shield generators, one located in each of the massively reinforced pauldrons. These highly experimental examples of Imperial personal shield technology meant that even if an enemy could conceivably penetrate the mundane armor protection of the Cataphractii, the miniature void shields would flare into life in an effort to thwart the opposition's anti-tank weaponry, by raising a solid shield of force before projectiles, destroying cannon rounds and detonating missiles, and should the enemy be in possession of advanced technologies, weapons firing fat beams of blinding laser energy or mass-accelerated bursts of plasma fire, the shields would instead disperse the weapon's energies to the point where it no longer possessed any threat to the Legionnaire. But such technology is well known to be temperamental, and should be viewed as a last resort defense rather than something to be relied upon. Luckily, the armor's base protection is usually more than good enough, and there are other ways to protect oneself against even the heaviest guns the scum of the galaxy might bring to bear against humanity's warriors. Even the most annihilatingly powerful of weaponry is little threat if reduced to a smashed heap of scrap metal before it can fire by massed bolter rounds. For Cataphractii armor did not merely offer protection. Its great fiber bundles of synthetic muscles laced throughout the armor's internal structures allowed the wearer to not only carry the crushing weight of the armor, but also heft weapons no normal man could even lift. The Reaper autocannon was designed specifically to be equipped alongside Cataphractii armor, and the Reaper autocannon would normally be heavy enough to require mounting on an armored vehicle. The Cyclone missile launcher is no different. Even larger and bulkier than the Reaper, the missile launcher enables the Cataphractii to fire up to 12 laser-guided missiles in a rippling volley. And once the launcher has been exhausted of its 12 missiles, the internal systems of the Cyclone missile launcher is able to draw upon stores of ammunition and reload the weaponry without any interaction required on behalf of the Terminator, other than ordering the systems to begin the reloading process and selecting the mix of weaponries, as the launcher is capable of firing both armor-defeating crack missiles and infantry-scything fragmentation warheads. And even the standard, small-armed, equipped in one massive armored fist, is a brutishly enlarged version of the Astartes bolt gun. Fitting twin barrels, this combi bolter is able to put down a thunderous hail of high-explosive bolt rounds, and once its ammunition is depleted, the armor's systems is able to reload the weapon without the need of the Terminator's other hand, which may thusly be employed in the business of carrying a monstrous close-quarters weapon. For it is up close and personal that Cataphractii plate truly shines. In ruined hive cities on the narrowed corridors of spacefaring vessels, there is no avoiding the metal-encased Titan. No hiding and no running, no ambushing and no flanking to take advantage of the ponderous pace of the armor. In straight-up slaughter is where the Cataphractii excels, and so they seek to close with the enemy wherever possible, as to maximize their own advantage. It is therefore crucial that the armor is able to reload any ranged weaponry fully automatic, as it would be very inconvenient to have to engage in that sort of nonsense with a muscle-bound orc right in front of you, swinging a crudely hammered piece of metal the size of a fully grown man at your midriff. But a powered sword, axe, or hammer provides a ready solution to the problem. The exact weapon used is normally a matter of Legion preference, however. The Sons of Fenris prefer the heft of a good axe. The more civilized Imperial fists would prefer a sword, often accompanied by a tremendous thunder shield, which is in and of itself as much a bludgeoning instrument as a means of defense. And of course, speaking of close quarters weaponry, there is of course the standard melee weapon, if any such thing could be said to exist in regards to such an oft-modified piece of armor and equipment. But if such a thing could be said to exist, it would be the massively enlarged lightning-clad power fist. Hardly the most elegant or subtle of weaponry, it nevertheless sends a clear message. You had best stay away, for I am more than capable of smushing you if I so choose. And that is no empty boast. The fist is covered by a disruptive power field, which will literally rip apart the molecular structure of anything it comes in contact with. As if the crushing force of a massed piece of ceramite driven home by fiber-bundled muscles wasn't enough, no, this weapon will literally tear the opposition apart molecule by molecule. And obviously this also makes it a very proficient breaching tool, a handy thing to have in the ruins of a hive city or a space hulk, where blocked passages are hardly a rarity. All of this fancy equipment, though, came at a price. Cataphractii armor was disturbingly expensive and labor-intensive to produce. It soon became apparent that the original goal of equipping every legionnaire with Cataphractii plate was a logistical impossibility. And it turned out that the legions themselves did not want this either. Even the Iron Hands with Ferrus Manus never signed off on the full replacement of their power armor, as they did not think Cataphractii armor was ready for general deployment. Ferrus Manus himself would continue to experiment on Terminator plate all the way up till his death, resulting in the Gorgon pattern, an improved suit to be certain, but also one that was as utterly lethal to its wearer as its enemies, unless they underwent extensive and excruciatingly painful augmentation procedures. And whilst tactical Dreadnought armor proved to be a valuable addition to the armorium of the legions, they also recognized its limitations. Whilst there was no force in the galaxy more suited to hammering into enemy lines via a drop pod or teleportarum assault than a legionnaire in Terminator plate, the armor's limited mobility swiftly became a liability in many scenarios. They could not move quickly over broken terrain, or launch rapid sweeping advances to catch a retreating enemy. The Great Crusade numbered millions of battles against thousands of foes. And tactical flexibility was not just a luxury, it was of paramount importance. And the current Cataphractii armor did not provide enough of it to be a general substitute. It was, however, a moot point. Maybe the Mechanicus could have produced enough suits at some theoretical point in the future, but the revolt of the War Master Horus and the beginning of the heresy swiftly destroyed any such possibility. In the bloody years to come, both sides would field every weapon at their disposal as they waged a hateful civil war against one another, and the Cataphractii would be liberally washed with the blood of traitors and loyalists alike, until it was eventually replaced, almost completely, by the far more economical Indomitus pattern. Those few suits that still survive in the days of the 41st millennium are sacred chapter relics, and will doubtlessly continue to serve the Imperium of Man and fight its wars until the end of days. And that is the end of the story of the Cataphractii armor, its design, its deployment, its use, and its equipment. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Until then, have a good day.